Hey everybody, A-Spec here. And today, got a new camera. Canon PowerShot SX170 IS. So, is this the perfect camera for Lindsey Stirling's Wanderland Tour? Let's find out. Going over the physical features, you have a big old lens that sort of sticks quite a ways out from the front of the camera. It kind of gives this a look kind of like a DSLR with a 50mm lens on it, which I kind of like. And because this is a 5 to 80mm 16 times optical zoom lens, it does have image stabilization, and that is pretty important to keep this long zoom stable at its full extent. So you also have a nice little SLR type grip, even though it's not nearly as big as an SLR grip. It's kind of an SLR type grip. And on the top of the camera you have a pop-up flash, which is actually kind of refreshing in a segment of compact cameras where the flash is built into the body of the camera, so your finger can obstruct it, or it's generally not as even as a pop-up flash as far as distribution of light goes. So I was really excited that this camera has a pop-up flash, especially given that I paid for this on Amazon $120 for it. It originally came out at about $170. It was released in 2013, and back when I got my previous camera, my ELPH130 IS, that I also did a review on, I couldn't afford this camera, so I just bought the ELPH130 IS. And now I'm going to power it on, and as you can see, the lens will extend from the camera's body, and you get a nice little startup chime. And going onto the display, it's a 3-inch LCD True Color 2 with Canon's Pure Color 2 technology, and it has 230,000 dots with a resolution of 320 by 240. So, while it might not be the absolute top of the line as far as displays went, even back in 2013, I think it's reasonable for the price I paid for it. And going over the back of the camera, and just power this off to save some battery. Going over the back of the camera, we have a dedicated movie record button, a 4-way selector with a SLR type spin wheel, jog wheel on the back that lets you select functions, and the top of the camera has a zoom lever. It's actually kind of nice. It has a precision zoom feature. So push it a little bit and you'll get this very, very slow, precise zoom. Push it all the way and it goes even faster. It goes from 0 to, or 1x, 1 times zoom to 16 times zoom in, I guess, about 3 seconds. Alright, let's test out the speed of this zoom. So it's about 2.5 seconds, going from 1 times to full zoom. I have had a couple of instances where it will start zooming as precision, in the precision mode, for, I'd say, up to about 2 times optical zoom, or 1.5 times optical zoom, and then it will go full speed, and it sometimes will not reach its full extent. It sometimes stops like a millimeter from the end of that zoom bar indicator on the display, but it's not very annoying. And going over the menu, you have Canon typical compact camera menu, but this is nice. In program mode and the other creative modes, you do have a flash control, which I didn't have on my ELPH130 IS. As you can see, my review up in the upper right hand corner of the display right now. So, and also what's nice about this camera is it has a ton of options to tweak the photos it generates to whatever you want them to be like. So you have You have an intelligent auto mode, which will automatically set the most optimum settings for the situation you're shooting in. You have a cool live mode, which provides easy picture adjustment for novice photographers to create your desired effect. So you can adjust exposure compensation from here. You can set color intensity, neutral, black and white, vivid. Going all the way to the left there brings you to black and white, and going all the way to the right gives these super vivid colors that wouldn't look out of place on a poster. So, and you can also change the color temperature from cool to warm, and to the middle, about a third step to the right is mostly how I like it when I'm using this mode, and it tends to overexpose a little even as automatic exposure, so I usually put it a third a stop to the left to make it a little bit more natural. Even in program mode, I sometimes find myself using the exposure compensation because it sometimes tends to overexpose things, like if you're shooting outdoors and it overexposes the sky. But nice thing about this camera is it has a full manual mode, which I was really excited about when I got this camera. So I have program mode, shutter priority mode, aperture priority mode, and manual mode, just like the big boy DSLRs. And the thing about this is it's a $120 camera on Amazon. The way I purchased it, which was used, it was in extremely good condition when I got it, and I bought it for $120. That's a pretty awesome deal for what I got. And as far as autofocus goes, this is pretty high-speed autofocus. The Canon likes to tout this up as the best autofocus system yet, as of 2013 in their SX series, and it is pretty fast. It's pretty darn fast. But if you don't like it, you can always switch it to, as far as creative mode, you can switch it to normal macro focus or full manual focus, which I really like. Because sometimes I'm shooting over at Road America, my home track, and I'm shooting pictures of vehicles going by, and I have this fence. And the autofocus always likes to focus on the fence, which makes the vehicles going by not too sharp. So I probably would love this when I go out to Road America and I do my photography there. So I can manually focus this and be able to focus in on the vehicles and not on the fence. So this is always nice. And it gives you the full range of focus. As far as manual goes, you can focus all the way down to 1 inch. All the way down to, actually down to 0.39 inches or 1 centimeter. And see, I'm just turning this little knob, and you can focus all the way out to infinity or all the way back to 0.39 inches. So it's pretty nice focal range. And you've also got shutter priority options as far as between an amazingly long 15 seconds to an insanely short, I had the ISO button there. Yeah, that's another feature. There's an ISO button. So there's a dedicated ISO button, and I like that because I don't have to go through menus. I often find myself changing my ISO and to suit different conditions. Usually I just let it do its own work, but leave it on auto and let it do its job. But I usually sometimes find myself with too much noise and I want to turn the ISO down. So I like that feature. So it goes all the way from 15 seconds to 1/3200th of a second, which is insanely fast, especially for a compact camera. And as far as the aperture value, you have from f8 to f3.5 at the wide-angle end, and f5.9 to f8 at the telephoto end. And that pretty neatly edges out my old ELPH 130 IS, which, even though it was f3.2 at the wide-angle end, it was f6.9 at the telephoto end. So I just like that it has a faster aperture. This one has a faster aperture at the telephoto end. Especially if I'm going to get pictures of concerts like in low light. I'm going to the Wanderland Tour, so I can get some good pictures in low light with this. Because it has a noticeably faster aperture than my old PowerShot, my old ELPH. And I don't have to use as much of the zoom range to get up close. So I can use even faster aperture values. And as far as photo quality goes, I haven't taken any pictures of this camera. Well, I just switched the memory card out, and I've got an 8GB SD card in this camera, or in my old ELPH, I got an 8GB SD card. So I just imported the pictures from my ELPH to my personal laptop, my HP Pavilion, which is running an AMD A10 9600P processor. So I just imported those pictures to the 1TB hard drive, and I haven't taken any pictures on this memory card yet. But telling you about the picture quality is pretty good compared to, well, it's pretty good. It's not a striking difference compared with my ELPH, but at higher ISO settings, this really shines because it's slightly wider aperture, so it can capture more detail, and it has noticeably less aggressive noise reduction programming. So the ELPH was programmed to cut noise very aggressively, so you lost detail at higher ISO settings. So this one doesn't do that. It has a little bit more noise, but I'm willing to make up for that noise with more detail. So it's a pretty good trade-off for me. Like, I know back in my ELPH review, I said it just has a crazy amount of noise, but that was sort of a misconception by me, by meaning the ELPH smudges detail like crazy at higher ISO settings. So this one doesn't do it nearly as much. So I like that. So that concludes my review of the Canon PowerShot SX170 IS. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. And this is A-Spec, signing out.